So it's October 30th, 2021, here beside my house in Flat Rock on the island of Newfoundland, right there on the edge, eastern edge of the island, where it's cold and damp today. And it's been cold and damp, and it's been so cold and wet for the past month that I haven't been able to do anything with these hives. I haven't been able to dig into them or really check them out or assess them at all. Because I only have access to the hives on the weekend because I have a full-time job that keeps me away from the bees. I used to work from home for a while there on occasion. It was a hybrid system of working from home and working in the office, and when I worked at home it was easy to come out here during my lunch hour and check on the bees, but I haven't been able to do that for a while. And the bees are suffering, I'd say, because I would have been on top of making sure they had the proper feed. Some of them are definitely low on sugar syrup going into winter, so I'm a bit concerned, but there's not much I can do now because they're at the point now where they're just not taking down. This is the most active they've been in a month, so they're just not taking down syrup or any kind of feed that I've given them. This one has got a jar of crystallized honey over the inner cover, and they've been pecking away at that, but that's really not much going on with that. That's not a really great source of food for them. But look at this. Look at the. This is. You can see this. This is the inside cover of that hive that I just took off, and it's all wet. So that's moisture coming from inside this hive and just building up around it. Right. So it really shows you the importance of an upper entrance or some sort of ventilation. When there's any kind of liquid that gets in there, it's got nowhere to get out. So right now this one doesn't. This hive doesn't have it doesn't even have a top entrance. But there was a method to this madness, but I won't go into it because every colony I have is a little bit different. I've got some frames over here. They've got some partially drawn or filled or capped frames of honey. This side is all nectar, and this side has got a little bit of capped honey. And same with this one. There's a bit of capped honey there, nothing there. A bit of capped honey and nothing there. And same here, a bit of capped, and that one's not fully drawn out. But these are the only frames that I could find. This one has a lot of uncapped honey. I'm going to just leave that out and let them clean that up instead of putting that in the hive, because they're never going to cap that. Yeah, so these are the extra frames that I had banging around that I thought maybe if I have some hives in this location that don't have any honey, if they have some frames that are completely empty, at least I can give them a little bit of something from these frames. I have two other hives in another location that have some extra honey, or I think they have some extra honey, but I'm just going to hopefully leave them alone because I didn't feed them any sugar syrup this fall at all, so they have to live entirely on the honey that they have. And I should have probably fed them, but I didn't. And these guys, let's take a look at these guys. These guys I don't know about those guys, but this colony it's really interesting. Oh, you can see the moisture. How quickly the moisture builds up inside the hives, even at this time of year. So they're probably still trying to cap some syrup or something. There's definitely moisture in the hive. And this hive is cool. This is the one hive that I have no doubt about. I think they're in fine shape. Let me just toss that. You can see down there. Yeah, they're looking really good actually. Every time I go into them, and it's a cold day, they're way down below their honey. So I'm confident that this is full of honey, and the rest of it is pretty good. This one I'm not sure about, and this one is a goner. I'll show you. This was a queen that I mated in another bee yard. I got a queen cell from a breeder on the island, and none of them mated well. And And now they're just a tiny little cluster, and I think there's a queen in there, but I'm not 100% sure. So, but I'm gonna dismantle that and just give up on that hive. There's no point in trying to nurse something like that. They're just useless, especially at this time of year. So I might try to pull some frames of honey off of that one and give them to the bees. That might be the first thing I do today. And here's a hive. This colony started off strong, and thought it was going to make lots of honey, and then it didn't make any. I think the queen was old. Well, the queen was old, and she must have just petered out. I think that happened to a lot of my hives this year. They just petered out. Anyway, they've got a feeder on them, and they've been sucking down, just giving them raw honey for the past little while because I was just too lazy to make syrup. But I think the syrup would have been better than the honey. It's funny, but honey is a good, it fills their guts, but a syrup will help stimulate certain things. So this helps stimulate brood rearing and other things for creating winter bees. And winter bees are different than summer bees. They're fatter, and they're basically just they're full of fat, lots of pollen and stuff like that. A lot of good food goes into them, and they're physiologically designed to just live in the hive for 6 months throughout the winter, whereas the other bees are smaller, less fat bodies on them, I guess you would say, and they're made for foraging and all that other good jazz. A few earwigs got in there. So I'm going to take this. I'm removing all the feeders today because that's the way. They're not doing anything more with the feed this late in the year for sure. So. What am I going to do today? I don't know. Let's see what we got going on here. Oh, this is a cool hive. I gave them some crushed up comb to clean up that was full of honey, and they did it. They cleaned it up. But I think they took that wax and they used it all that old wax to fill in the inner cover hole. So it's interesting, and you can see right here, everything's filled in with this old comb. But right there, they've got that one little tunnel that the bees can go up and down, and that's like a perfect example of bee space. It's just enough space for bees to walk through. Yeah, look at that. Anyway, so this has been here for a while, a couple of weeks, and they cleaned it up. I have a lot more of that actually. That's wet with honey, but they're more into just settling in for the winter now than sucking up all this honey and other stuff. So I think the first thing I'll do today is tear this apart. I might put this queen aside somewhere and maybe keep her alive. I don't know. I just don't have enough bees to keep her alive. And I'm just going to dismantle that completely and see what I can salvage out of it. I hope I can get some honey out of it. And then I don't know what I'm going to do. I'm going to just look at these hives, I guess. I'm going to just look inside, and hopefully it'll be warm enough to just pull a few frames and just get a sense of what's going on, how much honey they have. I can't do anything about the populations right now. I think some of them are still probably have a bit of brood on the go. Some might be shutting down. Yeah, this one looks great. This one is number 2101 there. It's looking fantastic. So anyway, but this is the first sunny day we've had for a long time, or that I've been able to access the bees anyway. And I'm going to try to make the most of it. I'm going to try to dig into each one of these hives today and just have them set for winter so I don't have to think about them anymore. Okay, so I just took this hive. It was over here, and I just moved it up here on this pallet because I wanted to where is it? I wanted to basically put this hard insulation underneath the bottom board to keep them off the damp, cold ground here. where all the eggs from the carpenters are hanging out. Anyhow, so I couldn't lift the whole thing because it was too heavy. And so I just had to remove each box separately and just quickly move it over here. So I took the top box, moved it right there, took the second box, moved it on top of that one, then lifted this one right there. And I could smell the alarm pheromones coming off the bees. But anyway, the cluster is full. It's a full cluster of full colony. They've got lots of bees, so in terms of population, they're good. But boy, look at this stupid, these defective supers. I got this huge crack, so I'm going to be filling that in with some tape. But they look pretty good. The boxes were heavy, so I'm just judging by the weight. I would say they've got lots of honey. So I'm not going to worry too much about them. I was a little bit concerned, to be honest, but whatever open comb or open capped or uncapped honey they have, hopefully they'll have it capped soon if they get a few warm days. But they're not looking as bad as I thought they would. So now this one, I'm going to do the same thing. I want to put insulation on the bottom of the bottom board. I was planning to do some other things, like I was going to drill a hole in the middle of the bottom board with a screen and use that for ventilation, but I'm going to just try this insulation on the bottom this year and see what happens. Anyhow, so this is, let's see what happens with this one too. I've been feeding them. This is the one that has the funky comb in the inner cover. So I'm going to clean up this comb and then rebuild the hive with a piece of insulation right here and hope for the best. Alright, so I've got another bottom board right here with a piece of hard insulation taped to the bottom of it, just stuffed it inside the cracks there, or the wedged in there, whatever you want to call it. If you look at my little, there we go. This is my my level that I use. You can see here the tilt forward is okay. So if there's any moisture or water in the hive, it should pour out the front of the hive. I find that it doesn't actually do that a lot. You really need a high tilt to get that working, but I'm just going to leave it alone for now. Just because sometimes the tilt is so tilty, the hive is so tilty that it looks like it's going to tip over. So I'm already on a hill, so I'm just going to roll the dice on that one. But anyway, you can see here this needs to be lifted a little bit on that side just to get it perfectly level. That's not such a big deal in the winter time, but if there is moisture in the hive and it isn't, tipped, sometimes you can get moisture build up on one side, and the whole side of the hive, the bees will ignore that whole side of the hive because it's all wet. So I can see here, I took out these two frames on the side of this middle box, and they're both empty. So I'm going to grab one of these frames of honey. This one looks pretty good, not too bad. I'll shove that in there, give it a little bit of extra honey there. Better than nothing. And the same with this one. That one's pretty good. That one's okay. This is the best looking one, so shake those bees off. Again, this frame isn't great. It's got more pollen than honey, but it's the best I can do. In this particular frame, I can tell this is one of the original frames that I got from the Newfoundland Bee Company in 2010 that came with one of the first nukes that I bought off them. They had a very distinctive frame, and this is one of them. It's old. It's still doing its job, man. Still working. But I would like to get some of the older frames taken out. Okay, so I removed that bottom box for a couple reasons. One, it's empty. It's got a couple of bees in it, but it's empty. And this box was built by a beekeeper that I knew years ago. I picked up their box, but the dimensions of this box are different. It's smaller than the other boxes. So I just wanted to get rid of it. So Let me just see if there's any queen in here. And if there isn't, I'll just shake all the bees into that hive. Come on. Well, so that's basically what's in there. Just a tiny number, a small number of bees. So I'm just going to shake them off, dump them in the hive. This is one of the frames that was in the bottom box, and you can see they've just abandoned it. When they're not working it gets moldy. So some of that syrup in there definitely wasn't capped, or it might be honey. You can see I got gets a little bit moldy once the bees start working it, right? The best mold prevention is bees. And here you can see a few frames. They had a little bit of brood still in the cells, but they must have just said, the hell with it. And a couple there too, and they're not coming. Those brood are dead. So it must have been cold enough for them to say, we don't need brood in that bottom box, we're out. So that's it. So this colony only has 2 mediums and they're light. So that's going to be interesting to see how they get through the winter. I definitely have to keep an eye on them. Anyway, that's good to know. And I just dumped them all in there. There's a couple holes in the inner cover right here. They'll find their way down. And there's that hole that they got down there in that comb. So, but yeah, so I got to keep an eye on them. They're not, that's not great. Alright, I'm going to do the same thing with this hive. I've got the bottom board with some insulation on the bottom, and I'm going to shift this hive over to there. It's going to move from here to there. Alright, let's see how heavy this top box is. I want to feel a heavy box. It's okay, but not really heavy. See? So things you find. Look, this is a moldy frame. Yeah, I don't know what happened there, but there's definitely some mold on this whole frame. I'm going to pull it for now. But look, there's a whole section of comb that's moldy. It's capped, but it's moldy. And there's no... Let's see. Yeah, there's nothing here. It's empty. This is empty, more or less. It's got a bit of wet nectar on it. So, that isn't good. So, let's take this frame, shake these bees off this frame, and put that in there. And let's look at this. So this moldy frame, the honey looks okay actually. Yeah, it's well capped, so I'm just going to leave it there. I'm going to put it back in. There's a small sheen of mold around it, so I think maybe some moisture might have got into the hive. But I'm going to seal this hive up today so that won't happen again. But I'm not sure what to think of that. But I don't have any other frames of honey to give them. And I can see right here, they're not full of honey. There's another frame here that doesn't have a lot of honey. Or any honey. Let's just take a quick look. So this one definitely does not look as good as it should. No. So there's a bit of a... Let's see if the queen is down here. These bees should be clustered well down below, not like this. Okay, it looks okay. They're clustering down below. Alright, this doesn't look great, but it's not... They've got some empty frames on the edge, but that's it. They're going to have to live with it. Okay, hold on. I do have one extra frame of honey that's got some honey on the side. So I'll pull this frame. It's got a little bit of nectar in it, but that ain't going to do it. So I'll put in this frame. It's got a little bit of drawn comb on the edge, or some honey on the edge of it, so it's better than nothing. I'll just lift this box and see how heavy it is. But it definitely doesn't look as good as it should. And there's not as many bees in this as I thought there would be. Okay, that's not too heavy. No. Okay, they're on the edge this year. Yeah, look at this. This is nothing, right? Let's see. Yeah, nothing. So this bottom box is... See, normally I like to see them clustering down here, but they're not clustering because there's no honey down there. Let's see. Yeah, this is... I'm going to knock this down to two mediums. So there's a little bit of capped honey on the bottom. So we got some bees down here. Got some pollen. But the queen isn't down here and they're not clustering down there, so let's get rid of it. The general rule is a small colony goes into a small hive and a big colony goes into a big hive. And this is sort of like a medium colony, so I'm going to put it into a medium hive. It's going to be 2 mediums, which is pretty low. So, we'll take this box, which is the medium box. It's not too heavy. It's not full of honey, that's for sure. So I'm going to move that over here. So that's the new location, and that's the new bottom box. So I can take some of those honey frames and put them in the bottom there. And I got a few frames in here like this where the comb hasn't been drawn on the foundation, on the edges, but it's packed with honey. So I'm just going to leave it there. So this is looking okay. All of these frames are full of honey, which is good. This one is got mold on it for some reason, which isn't good. I could have sprayed it down with a bit of apple cider vinegar, but I'm just going to leave it alone. I think the bees can handle it. And then I'll put the top back on right now. This is the top box, and I can see it doesn't have a lot of honey either. So this is my concern here. Not enough honey, not enough bees. It's riding the line between, well, it's definitely not a strong colony. This frame is going. There's nothing there. This doesn't look good. This is the top box, and it should be packed full of honey, and it's not. It's uncapped syrup. Yeah, this is okay, but it's not great. A lot of the honey isn't capped, and I assume the queen is in there somewhere, but it doesn't look like a gigantic cluster, to be honest. All right, there's one good frame of honey. There's no brood, but I didn't dig into the bottom deep too much, or the bottom box. Well, I'm glad I finally got to take a look at that hive, because they have no honey at all. There's hardly any honey in the bottom in any of those mediums, so they're in trouble. So I'm going to, let's see, the thing is, if the queen is weak, there's no point in trying to save them. I didn't see any brood in there, but that doesn't mean anything. I didn't spot the queen either, but again, that doesn't mean anything. She might not be laying right now. I don't think they're queenless. But I do have a queen in reserve sitting in this box right here, so if I need one, I got one. But you can see here they're all just sort of heading back to the old location. They're a little bit disoriented. But you can see also here they're starting to find their way back home. And within an hour, some of them will drift into that hive, but most of them will find their way back home. You got to get some bees scenting over here though, and there's not much scenting going on. This one's scenting a bit. So anyway, I don't know if this insulation on the bottom is really making a big difference, but we'll see. We'll see if it helps, because I do often find that well, the bottom board is cold and frosty, and maybe that'll prevent that cold and frosty stuff from getting into the hive. Again, I have another defective super that I purchased from, I won't say where, but they're defective, and big cracks between the supers, so I'm going to have to seal them in with some of that silver tape, but I'll do that later once they're all settled in. And as for this one, I'm not going to mess with them. This is the one colony that I did a walk-away split with this season, and it worked out really well, and queen was off to the races, and they're making tons of honey, and whenever I pick up the box, it's full of honey, and it's heavy, and there's lots of bees, top and bottom, all over the place. I could take a quick look, but I'm not even going to put anything. I'm not going to do anything. I'm not going to put any insulation on the bottom, or I'm not really going to mess with them. Because when they're doing it right without me, then I just sort of stand back and let them do their thing. But this one, that was definitely in trouble. Yeah, I don't need to look. I can tell you there's tons of bees in here. They got comb. They've got honey. I'll take a look, but I'm confident they're fine. I'm just going to pull. Yeah, I can see all these frames are bulging with honey. If you look down here, that's bulging honey. That's bulging honey. It all looks like honey. So I'm really not that worried. And I can see just from the bottom, the activity in the bottom of the hive. The bees are everywhere. So there's plenty of bees. Let's just see what this frame looks like. If this outer frame is packed with honey, then I'm not going to worry too much about the rest of it. Yeah, that's pretty good. Yeah, like that's looking. So it's not fully capped, and it may not get capped before the end of the winter. You can see it's a bit moldy, but it's not the end of the world, and when they need it, they'll clean it up. There's lots of pollen on that frame. So, and the frame next to it is full of pollen, full of honey too, and I'll just quickly show that, and then I'm done. I don't need to dig into the rest of the hive. Yeah, look at that, right? So this is typical, right? Sometimes you get a frame and it's capped honey, but it's all moldy. But I think that happens from, this is syrup, late season syrup that's been capped but ignored because they're moved on to other stuff. And the bees are probably clustering. It's already gotten cold, so I'm guessing the bees are clustering down below most of the time. So they're not even on this frame, on this honey. And when the bees aren't on the honey, it gets moldy. That's basically the way that works. Or it can get moldy. But that's no big deal. They'll clean that up. They'll go down in the winter, cluster down below in the winter, and the next frame is full of honey. So this hive is in great shape. I'm not worried about it at all. And I don't want to mess with them, so I'm just going to leave them alone. So they look great. Let me just put the top back on. And so like a lot of my hives, I've got these defective supers on them, and there's lots of cracks. So I'm going to fill in those cracks. So my really strong colonies are just fill in those cracks, and with propolis. And some of these, it does have a little bit of propolis, but they couldn't fill it all in. So I'm going to just get that silver tape and just fill it in. And I think this hive is going to be fine. I think I could probably, I might give them a piece of hard insulation up top later in the winter. But I think I could just put a ventilation rim up top and be done with them, and no worries. I think they're in tip-top shape. They're looking great. So I'm not going to mess with a good thing. Leave them alone. This hive over here, it's my second queen of 2021, and it's in okay shape, but not great. And it's definitely a 2 medium hive. And let's just take a quick peek. Yeah, look, they've got a pollen patty that I don't think they're touching. Let's see. No, they're not even eating that, so they don't need that. Shaky, 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 shaky. So let's just take a quick peek. I can see they have honey up top. So there might be, this last frame might be a little bit thin. Let's take a quick peek. But the queen, this is one of these queens that I got off of a breeder, and I bred them, tried to mate them, and they really didn't mate well at all. Yeah, this frame is pretty much empty. And an edge frame that's empty isn't the end of the world. At least it provides some insulation. So this is a frame. See, none of these are looking great. They're not all capped, right? And you want to see capped. See, when they're not capped, especially if it's sugar, uncapped sugar can get moldy. And so anyway, this stuff isn't, it's a mix of slightly moldy capped honey and capped sugar syrup. It's not great. Gotta say, it's not great. But I can't do anything about it. I'm pretty sure they've got a full medium of honey down below and mostly up top too, so they're okay. But I was never impressed with this queen, so all the queens that I mated from the queens that I got, the queen cells that I got this year, none of them mated well. None of them are great queens, and this is one of them. So that's okay. So what we've got here is we've got a 2 medium hive, that's not great. I got a 2 medium hive that's light, so that's not great. I've got a 3 medium hive full of honey, full of bees. That looks good. This one is a 3 medium hive full of honey, full of bees. Looks great. So it's a real mixed bag here. Nothing is great. It's been a weird summer. So I'm going to take a quick look at these guys. I'm going to get rid of this honey that I've been feeding them, and I'm just going to see what they're doing. This is a colony that was strong going into the summer, but the queens faded near the end of the winter and then the summer, and she stopped laying and they stopped producing, and they ate a little bit of this pollen patty, but I don't think they're excited about it. Anyway, let's see if there's what's going on up here. They're not happy. I think they've got an old queen, and they know they've got an old queen, and that queen could die over the winter. And there's not much I can do about it. Lots of drones still in this hive. Too many drones. So that last frame, side frame, is a mix of capped honey and pollen. Okay. This looks good. All right, this looks good. So this is the rest of it looks like capped honey. There, that's basically capped honey. A little bit of pollen over there, but same here. It's all capped. The next frame is all capped honey. That's what you want to see. Every single frame capped with honey. And sometimes the edge frames aren't. Like this one. This has got a mix of a little bit of capped honey, a lot of open nectar. If I gave this a shake, I think it would mostly be honey. It wouldn't drip out with wet nectar. So they ate some of that pollen patty. At least they got rid of it anyway. I'll put that back in. Now let's see if this last frame over here has got honey. And if it does, that's it. I'm just going to leave them alone. I'm not going to give them any insulation on the bottom or any of that stuff. Okay, that's an almost completely empty frame. Again, not the total end of the world for the side frames like that. So this is a little bit of honey. So it's a fairly light frame of capped honey. That's not great. But see, what you want is that you want them to go down in this cluster down below. Okay, this is honey. So, I don't know, this looks pretty good overall. It's not great, but it's not bad. And I'll just show you this frame. See, this is it's a mix of capped and uncapped honey. So it's not great. I can tell this queen is slowing down, and she might die over the winter, and not much I can do about it. And this is good to see too, that they're, I don't know if you can see this, but they're scenting, right? Scenting is always a good sign. So I'll put that top back on. So my guess is there are bees clustering down below. And there aren't many up top because they're clustering down below. And there's nothing wrong with that. So there we go. These ones are looking pretty good too. All of my hives, most of my hives anyway. This one not as much. But see, you can see there's a bit of a crack here between a lot of my supers. And they're just, because they're all partially, some of them are defective, some of them are homemade. They're all over the map. Like every one of these is, you can see just by the handle in them. Each one has a different handle. They were made by somebody different. So, except for the cracks in the hives, they're okay, but that queen is definitely old. And I'm worried about her. Oh, I've got this thing too. Let's take a look, I guess. And if I spot the queen, I'll catch her with this thing. So, no honey. So, this whole hive is just a waste. Nope, no queen on that frame. There she is. You can see her right there. She's still alive. But boy, she isn't very big. And I can't tell if this camera's focusing or what. Let's see, is it focusing? No. Anyway, so it's not tip-top, but it's what I've got. A lot of my queens needed to be replaced this year, and I couldn't find anybody on the island who had queens that that were readily available when I needed them. That's definitely going to be a problem in Newfoundland. There's a shortage of suppliers to make nukes, but I think worse is not having queens, because I mean, you got to make your own queens now, and I guess that's what I got to do. So, and the one queen that I made on my own is the best one I've got, so I think I'm happy with that. I'm just going to continue to do walkaway splits on my favorite colonies, and I've got one in another location that's the best colony I've ever seen in my life, and they're getting split next year for sure. That's about it. So it's, it's an okay shape, but not great. This one I'm not worried about. That one is sort of ish, and that one's okay. The ones that have 3 deeps are okay. And that one has 3, this one has 3, this one has 3, 2, 2, and 2. So at least and this one isn't. That's a bit iffy, and this one I'm not 100% sure about either. It's an old queen, I think, too. So And I have a queen here. That's this is one of the queens that I mated. I got from the queen cell, and I don't know where she is. She's in there somewhere. But anyway, she's got nowhere to live, so I'm going to give her away to somebody.